Good morning. We are here at the Surfside Kollel Boker, and we are discussing a very controversial question. Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, and other coffee shops, are they kosher? Are they not kosher? In regards to bishul, akum, and drinking coffee, Rabbi Mansour and brought down many of the previous Gedolim of the previous generations that was not an issue. Bishul akum, when it came to coffee, wasn't an issue. Today we're going to talk about something that seemingly is a big issue because the Starbucks facility, specifically here in Bell Harbor, is completely not kosher. There's almost nothing in that place that's kosher. Furthermore, in a recent experiment that we did, we sent a few of our students here in the Surfside Kollel Boker to go to Starbucks and ask them which items are kosher. And they seemingly produced their own hashgacha that included on it OU, OUP, which means Pesach, had OK, had like a bunch of the kashrut signs, and on it had like muffins and all these types of items that are without packaging. They warmed them up in microwaves. The whole entire thing is a big mess. So today we're going to talk about that. A lot of these coffee shops today are not only selling coffee, they're selling everything with the coffee. The coffee at one point might have been a big money maker, but over the course of time, what happened is that these shops started to introduce food, and the food products are not kosher. There's nothing to talk about in regards to the food products, even if seemingly they were kosher in their wrappers or when they're sealed. They seemingly are removed from there. They get warmed up. They use them with different kelim. We're not going to go to all the specifics of it, but in and of itself, there's tons of terefot and nevelot in those places. But the discussion today is, can you just drink a black coffee from Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts or a not kosher coffee shop? So today we're going to be discussing it from the Kashrut Currents. Kashrus Currents, actually, from summer 5783. This was an article from Rabbi Baruch Bayer of the Starkey Kashrut Administrator. Let's read it. It's extremely interesting. And we're going to see at the end of this video that the Starbucks of Bell Harbor is a facility that no one should go to. Leave aside that you're literally on a road that has like 4 coffee shops that are kosher, that you can pick up a coffee, a good one, mind you. In my opinion, even better than Starbucks, if you were to ask me, if you were to go to like Cafe Vert, right here down the block. So I mean, a Orthodox, religious, yeshiva, yid going to Starbucks instead of the Jewish-owned coffee shop, which has hashgacha, I think is silly. I think they're fooling themselves on that. But let's take a look if it's even a problem. So the Star K hotline receives no end of calls from coffee heads who dot on their daily cup of joe, whether from a local Starbucks or a Dunkin' Donuts on the road. Recent changes in Starbucks company policy vis-a-vis kosher have further elevated the confusion for the kosher coffee connoisseur. Let's dive in to clear out some of the haze. Unflavored roasted coffee beans. Unflavored, plain coffee beans. Whole and ground are considered kosher without a hechsher. Bearing in mind, buying a cup of unflavored regular or decaf coffee should not present any kashrut issues. Some coffee vendors, however, sell kosher and non-kosher items like bacon and ham-filled sandwiches. The kelim used for coffee and the treif are at times washed together, causing bliot, absorbed tastes from the treif utensils to enter the coffee equipment. For example, at Starbucks, it's been established that the brew basket that holds the coffee grounds while the coffee is being made is sometimes washed with kelim that it may have come into contact with treif. If we have a perfect storm situation in which the wash water is yad soledetbo, yad soledet means literally the temperature at which someone will quickly remove his hand to avoid being burned. The food must be at least this hot before its taste is considered to have been transferred into a utensil. Rabbi Moshe Heineman holds Yad Soledet is 120 degrees Fahrenheit. That's Rabbi Moshe Heineman. And If in Starbucks they are putting hot water and they put in these kelim with that they used in order to process or work with the tray food, and no soap is added before all this is entered into the hot water, the brew basket is considered treif, and the coffee made afterwards is likewise treif. We do not know the cleaning procedures used by all coffee vendors. And as a side note, I'm adding this, nor should they be trusted, as we see quite commonly, even with places with hashgachot and mashkichim, issues arrive. Kal vachomer ben beno shel kal vachomer, a place that seemingly has no clue with kashrut and nobody's overlooking it. We do not know the cleaning procedures used by all coffee vendors, but most of them sell treif items along with coffee, and the possibility exists that similar kelim issues may be present. Based on these facts and assumptions, the psak should be that one is permitted to buy hot coffee only from vendors who one knows do not sell treif, or whose cleaning procedures do not impact the kashrut of the coffee. This is in fact Starkey's opinion on purchasing coffee from stores that sell treif items. There is a key exception, one who is traveling from home. So far, up until this point, seemingly Starkey's opinion, if you go to a facility, a coffee shop, not owned by a Jew, no kashrut, nothing, and you're just getting a black coffee, and they sell not kosher food, Starkey seemingly doesn't approve of that. And the reason why I respect Starkey is they're doing the heavy lifting, and they're doing the research. On the couple of times that we've done the research, we've done it with Lior. Lior went out to Starbucks and he checked it himself. He's going to show us actually in a few minutes when we're done the actual hashgacha paper that the Starbucks facility created themselves. It's crazy that this happens, but today seemingly people are too gullible. They just believe everything and anything because they want to tend to that ta'ava at that moment. So they want that coffee. So they figure, is it coffee? They ask the guy, is it coffee? Yeah, it's kosher. It's kosher? Yeah, kosher coffee. Boom. The guy, suddenly, I don't know if that guy would ask for a loan for $100 if the guy would give it to him, the customer. But when it came to his kashrut on the coffee, he trusted him right away. So there's an exception here. The exception that the Starkey is bringing down is one who's traveling from home, whether by car, rail, plane, bus, or stagecoach. He may stop at any rest stop, gas station, Dunkin' Donuts, or Starbucks and purchase a hot cup of their favorite brew. The reasoning behind this exception is a bit complex, but here goes. So this is interesting. So the Starkey is telling you a regular coffee shop in the city that you live in that sells not kosher food products is an issue. Besides the fact that if there's a coffee shop on the same road as a not kosher coffee shop, and the guy's priding himself that he's a religious guy, Orthodox guy, goes to yeshiva, his wife covers her hair, guys wears tzitzit, he's doing all the stuff. Why are you skipping over the Jewish business to go to a not Jewish business to drink a coffee that may seemingly have food or things in it? That's a problem. I don't understand it. And it happens so often, and I see it so blatantly. I don't know. It could be that people just didn't learn or didn't know.
Which even you should only be having black coffee at the non-kosher establishment.
That's besides the point. By the way, I told this to my kids because my kids would go to the Starbucks and they'd be like, "Oh, look, the syrup's okay." I was like, "Yeah, maybe when you bought it from the facility and it was sealed, but once this stuff is opened, we don't even know if they're switching bottles between them. If that's the original." Everything, there's no trust when there's no hashgacha of any concern. We saw how in Jersey, this happened pretty recent, where there was a Chinese food selling completely not kosher food, nevelot, terefot, completely. It was owned by a non-Jew, and there was a hashgacha. But in the real world, a lot of these hashgachot are extremely weak. They're not really checked. A person needs to know the owner of the restaurant or of the facility to know, is he Jewish? Does he have Yirat Shamayim? If he doesn't have Yirat Shamayim, or he's open on Shabbat. That's the funny thing in Israel. You go to Israel, all these places, I need kasher. Tell the guy, you open on Shabbat? Yeah, I'm open Shabbat. Okay, and you have kashrut? No, I don't have any hashgacha, no kashrut. He puts a picture of the Baba Sali or the Lubavitch Rebbe on the wall, and that's his mashgiach. It's mashgiach min halonot. I don't understand it. It's just very common. But seemingly there's so many issues, even within our own circles, even within like our own restaurants and things like that. We find issues that have to be resolved. I can't imagine if in places where there's no Yirat Shamayim and nothing of that sort, how it would happen. So let's take a look why it would be okay if you go to a coffee shop not in your city. Let's say you're traveling to Philly, you live here in Miami, or you live in Deal, you live in Brooklyn, and you travel. Why would that be okay? So Sarkei has a great point on this one. Our concern centers on biliot from treif in the kelim. What that means, biliot, is when the pot itself, let's say it's made out of metal, and it's warmed up to 120 degrees Fahrenheit with water, then the pores open up. And so things that are in the water around can go in, things can go out. So they're concerned that when you put hot water into a basin and you put, let's say, the coffee machine, and you put also the item that warmed up the pig or the pork, everything's all in that one facility's hot water. If they didn't put the soap in there first to kind of destroy the tastes and make it pagum, then it could be that to their fault, all those tastes are going into the coffee machine. The next time that coffee machine is heated with that hot water with making coffee, those biliot come back into the coffee. The halacha is that tastes that are pagum means off tastes, do not have an ability to impart a treif status to kosher foods or utensils. So here's a little bit of the kicker, is that if let's say they went through this process, right, and it ended up having the biliot from, let's say, the treif into the coffee machine. But let's say the coffee machine wasn't used for another, let's say, 2 days. I know, but let's say for the halacha is 1 ben yomo, but let's say it's 2 days for that matter. Then whatever was absorbed becomes pagum, becomes spoiled. So even if it were to come out into the coffee later, it's not a taste that you would taste, not a taste that you would want, and all that along with it. And so the halacha also says that taste absorbed in utensil that is not ben yomo. Ben yomo means within 1 day, has not been used within 24 hours, are considered pagum. And he brings that in Shulchan Aruch 103. Furthermore, Shulchan Aruch paskins that if one is unsure whether the eating utensils or cooking equipment owned by non-Jews were used for non-kosher items within the last 24 hours, one may assume that they were not. That they were not. So Shulchan Aruch is telling you that if he's not sure if the cooking equipment that's owned by a non-Jew was used within 24 hours, you're not sure, then he may assume it was not used in 24 hours. Okay? We're so far on it. This concept is known as stam kelim einam ben yomam. Regular keli that you don't know owned by non-Jew, it's not ben yomo. Unless you know, it's ben yomo. We're going to go into a coffee shop that uses the coffee machines every single day. That's their core, meat and potatoes business. They're using that every single day. They're not even Saturday, 7 days a week. Remember, it's not a kosher facility. They're open on Shabbat. This concept is known as stam kelim enam ben yomam, or just stam kelim in halacha shorthand. With this in mind, the mechaber paskins at Shulchan Aruch that if someone mistakenly used a pot of a non-Jew to heat up something, the food is permitted since it's assumed that the pot was not used within the past 24 hours. This is a great deen to keep handy when faced with a b'di'evet situation like the one in the Shulchan Aruch, and he brings here 5. B'di'evet is a scenario in which halacha allows a lenient approach to be applied. B'di'evet is the lower one, the lechat techila is the highest one, then there's mahmir or mehudad, and then he continues, number 6, stam kelim enam bene yomam. Regular keli is not within a 24-hour period that was used that you're not sure of. It's based on safek sefeka, a doubt of a doubt. What is that? Maybe this pot was not used within 24 hours, rendering any absorbed pagum off tasting taste. Maybe the pot wasn't used in 24 hours. That's the first safek. What's the one? And even if it was used within 24 hours, maybe the absorbed non-kosher taste is pagum in this particular food that was cooked. That's the Tur, Siman, Kuf, Chaf Bet, and it's in the name of the Rosh.
And then even one more suffix, you could say, oh, they even wash together. But that's
that's going even further. We're going to sue that into the Starbucks.
That's a pretty big leniency today. Like you said, like to your point, you know 100% that a coffee shop probably washes it every day.
Yeah, so he's going to go into that, but further, the Starkey was very clear. This is talking about when you are traveling.
Only traveling.
It's, we're not talking about when you live in Bell Harbor or Surfside and the Starbucks is right here and there's problems there. Versus, let's say, as an example, I'm not being paid by Cafe Vert in any way, but I do happen to drink their coffee. I think their coffee happens to be better. I think their double espresso black is better than the Starbucks. And it's right down the block. So you can go give business to a Yid, right down the street, kasher, mehudar,
get your milk, get your whatever.
Everything the way you want it, kasher lemehadrin. Or you go into Starbucks, you start dancing around you got to go through open sfarim in order to make sure that it's kasher, and there's probably issues with it to begin with. So the question is, does buying coffee in a non-kosher establishment while traveling have the status of a bidei evet situation? If yes, we could apply the principle of stam kelim to the coffee making equipment and enjoy a guilt-free cup of Starbucks coffee. Star K Rabbinic Administrator Rabbi Moshe Heinemann Shlita answered this question by marshaling a Yad Ephraim. He brings in a Yad Ephraim on this one. Where is that located? That's in Rabbi Ephraim Margolis. It's in Yoreh De'ah 122-6. For those who are checking it up, which references a Noda Bihuda. This is so interesting. That discusses the propriety of Jews drinking coffee in the Gentile-owned coffee houses of 18th century Prague. Noda Bihuda. He said this coffee issue was not a new one. It's been around for 250 years of going for the coffee. So brings that Noda Bihuda Yoreh De'ah She'ela Lamed Vav. The Noda Bihuda addresses the drinking of coffee from the coffee house mugs. Back in the day, there were no disposable cups. They had these mugs like this one. It's ceramic or whatever they were. Now, when a guy went to get a cup of coffee, he wasn't taking the coffee in his hand. He wasn't taking it in a paper cup. That didn't exist. So, could we use these mugs? Okay, let's see. It was assumed that the mugs had non-kosher milk in them when the Gentile patrons drank their coffee. In those days, there was no heter to drink non-Chalav Yisrael milk or Chalav Stam, and it was considered not kosher. Okay? So, back in the day. As a side note, we're not discussing Chalav Yisrael today. We will in the coming future, Be'ezrat Hashem, and we'll discuss Chalav Yisrael, non-Chalav Yisrael, and then I'm going to bring in some of the things from the Mefarshim, how even if you have a kula to have Chalav Stam, it's mitameh hanefesh, and I'll show it to you from a few Sfarim, how sometimes people did everything right raising kids, but they fed them non-Chalav Yisrael milk, and for some reason the kids didn't grasp the learning and the advancement in the religion in the same way. There is something with foods and with the neshama. The Hachamim knew it. The Torah tried to spell it out very clearly. Today we, unfortunately for our desires, we look for leniencies. But for anyone who really is honest with himself, who looks into between the lines, will pretty much see that you got to be more careful than anything, especially today, because even in the products that we buy today that have labels on them, there's so many issues. Like, I was recently researching organic food, and we're going to talk into nutrition, God willing, but of how this ties in. But like even the labeling, when I look at a label that says organic, what's the first thing that comes to my mind? Whatever I define as organic. So for me, what's organic might not be what you're defining as organic. Now, okay, that's fine. But then when you actually look at what the company put the label on, what that means to them organic, you're like, oh, that's not organic to me at all. I wouldn't call that organic. I don't know you're using pesticides on it. Yeah, but it's still considered organic or something of the nature.
You have no idea.
Yeah. So Lior, what I'm trying to tell you is that the more that we look into things, you see it. It's not surprised that if you look at the biggest gedolim, all the biggest Talmidei Chachamim, Mikubalim, they limited their food intake a lot. That's for another reason, but I believe part of it was kashrut. And I know this firsthand from at least 3 major Mikubalim in Israel. Most of them didn't eat meat, red meat. Interesting, they didn't. Some of them who ate chickens did the shechita on their own chickens. They'll have fish. I know that Rabbi Yitzhak Kaduri, from one of his Havrutot, told me straight out that he would only eat fish brought to him like ben yomo, like within a day, that was the complete fish. Not like we buy today all the fillets.
Nice.
Because as much as we trust, it's all filleted, and we don't know what's going in and out. So that's an interesting point. In those days, there was no heter to drink non-chalav Israel milk or chalav stam, and it was considered non-kosher. Since disposables had yet to be developed, the only way to drink the coffee was by using mugs that absorbed the taste of non-kosher milk. The Jews who drank from the non-kosher mugs had two possible halachot to rely on. There was a way for them to use it. From the Nodav, first, the mug was a keli sheni. Keli sheni means it wasn't actually boiled in it. There was another place where the water was boiled or whatever, and it was burdened. Keli sheni is a little bit less temperature, and therefore not hot enough to cause a transfer of treif milk taste into the coffee. He mentions on number 9 on the bottom, the mug or bowl into which the food from a pot on a fire is poured is called keli sheni, a second level vessel. The walls of this vessel are considered to have sufficiently cooled the temperature of the food to such an extent that it no longer hot enough to transfer its taste into the vessel's walls. Okay. The halakha of stam kelim, referenced above, made the assumption that the utensils were not used within 24 hours and any biliot were pagum. But you can't use that one. That doesn't fly because it's a coffee shop. No, David dismisses the keli sheni heter by referencing the Taz and the Rashal. I believe this is Rav Shlomo Luria, who paskin that this is only helps in a b'di'evid situation. The Shach writes that we need to be strict in applying the heter of keli sheni regarding the earthenware utensils and vessels, such as the mugs that were used. The heter of stam kelim also doesn't work here, since he says that these mugs were certainly used daily. This is a coffee shop. Therefore, the Nodav Yudah paskins that these mugs should not be used lechatechila. If you are lechatechila Jew, you're one of those who loves to do it correctly, and that whoever has it within their power to protest the practice of Jews drinking in Gentile coffee houses should do so. That's Nodav Yudah. That's Rabbi Yecheskel Landau. All right. So the number 10, the words in the Nodav are illustrative of how seriously he felt about the issue. ומה שהשיב לו המשיב שבפראג ששותים בני תורה בבתים של אינו יהודי ידע רום מעלתו אם הם בני תורה אינם בני יראה והמה כאלי דעת. He says if these are bnei Torah, they don't have any yirat shamayim. That's all I could tell you on them. That's a strong text. Remember, we're just reading and delivering the goods. We're not
it's unrelated, but maybe it could apply. I know it's more for basar halav, but is there a concept of batel b'shishim in this like? I'm thinking
it didn't come up. I don't recall it when it came to that. I know that pagum ben yomo was as exactly as we brought down, but I can reference it. I can ask my rabbi, and we'll discuss it in further tomorrow. In regard, I know we can discuss the batel b'shishim. You should know there's issues where it's batel b'mea. Yeah, so there's things like when there's teruma, things like that. So it's the whole thing batel b'shishim, batel b'mea. It's a very interesting concept. I remember when I first learned it years ago in Ketet Zion with this Gemara teacher, Raymond Fayena. He's a Lebanese guy, businessman. Probably he's one of the 2 best Gemara teachers I've ever learned in my life in Brooklyn. Fantastically clear, to the point, concise. He knows his stuff. Every time I sat in Gemara with him, I enjoyed every single minute. I sat with him for like close to about a year and a half, 18 months when I was in Brooklyn, in order to learn a little bit from him, because I heard he was a great teacher. And there was no joke. I mean, my Gemara teacher from high school, there were horror stories. I don't know if there was like some group effort to encourage everyone to hate Gemara but like that's what it was. Took a long time for me to get back into the Gemara until I found teachers that really understood the subjects, really cared, and I found it in a businessman. It's kind of funny. The other individual that's one of the best Gemara teachers, also a businessman, and he's a great teacher. And that's Rabbi Isaac Yedid, also a fantastic Gemara teacher. Every time I sit with those 2 Gemara teachers, I could sit there for hours. It's that enjoyable. They understand it. I ask them difficult questions. It's good to know because sometimes a person has a teacher, he feels that he's just not getting it, it's not feeling it. And the Gemara talks about it. If a person's learning for 5 years and doesn't feel anything, he might have to reset, find another place, find another rabbi. It could be that, he advanced or it's not clicking. It happens. These things happen. So let's return to the present. With the prevalence of disposable cups, we no longer have the issue of non-kosher mugs and Gentile-owned coffee houses. But our issue is not mugs; it's the washing procedures that may mix treif dishes with the coffee-making equipment. And the heter of stam kelim applies to bidi evid situations only, as previously mentioned. So Rabbi Haneman has written to our rescue by citing 10 words in the Neodab Yudab, which say when someone is traveling and is in a place where no kosher utensils are available. He's in a place where no kosher utensils are available. He is considered to be in a bidi evid situation, and he may use the Gentile-owned mug. 11. The 10 critical words from the Neodab Yudab are v'halachal maaseh bederech be'ushpiza she'en sham kedim acharim michashev de'avad v'chuleh. Now, I don't know if that includes a lot of the places today that people are traveling to. A guy traveling from Miami to Brooklyn, I don't know if he's in a situation of traveling to. I know he's traveling. I don't know the specific, if there's kosher coffee houses there and you could buy kosher utensils and all that stuff. I don't know. I don't know if the Neodab Yehuda was talking about that, or if he was talking about a situation where the guy was going from, let's say, Krakow, Poland, where it was a center of Jewish life, to a place where there completely wasn't any Jews in the town. I don't know if going from a Jewish city to another Jewish city, if that is the same thing. We'll find out, and I'll look that up. Rabbi Haneman applies the same thinking to our modern coffee house issue. He says when someone is on the road traveling, he is considered to be in a bidi evid situation. Based on Star K investigations, we also know that the treif dishes at Starbucks are not always washed with the coffee equipment. So he said that he brings in another thing here, that it could be sometimes that they're not washed together or separately. Therefore, we can use the heter of stam kelim whenever we are in a bidi evid situation, traveling. He says, number 12, the fact that the treif dishes are not washed with the coffee equipment every day allows us to avoid the issue of the shach mentioned earlier, that the mugs could not be allowed based on stam kelim when they were used daily with non-kosher milk. Now, what's interesting on this is on the stam kelim, is he saying if it's not being washed every single day? I guess they checked. Maybe they're not being washed together every single day. I don't know. Listen, one thing for sure is that these coffee houses, their hours are posted. They're all glass. You could literally stand outside and see how they wash it. That's mostly done outwardly. So you can kind of check. There's no secret. It's not like you have to actually investigate. Just like really check it out. Just remember that as soon as you get home, you are no longer considered to be in a bidi evid situation. You are back in the chatechila land. You got to do it right. And non-kosher coffee places should be avoided unless you are absolutely certain that no treif utensils are washed with the coffee equipment, which is not the case here. Bear in mind that even while traveling, you may only order regular or decaf coffee or a latte made. Here they say with chalab stam, because this is written by Ashkenazim. If you don't keep chalab Israel, I mean, Ashkenazim also keep chalab Israel, but for those that don't, that keep it. Now, frappuccinos and other flavored coffee creations contain additional ingredients which need to be reviewed before they can be recommended. Okay, then number 14, he says visit the Starbucks page at Star K, and he gives the page for the information about hot and cold Starbucks beverages which are approved for consumption, both lechatechila and b'di evid, only while traveling. So this is a fantastic article, Rabbi Baruch Bayer, thank you for that. So be aware, Starbucks of Bell Harbor, Surfside over here, it's an issue. Lior, if you want to show us, please, the hashgacha. Good morning, Sharon. If you want to see the hashgacha, you can check it out. You have the paper.
Yeah, I have it here.
You got it? Perfect. Let's take a look. Okay, so here we go. So this was from the Bell Harbor Starbucks. You can take a look at it right here. This was seemingly created by them because I know that without having to ask further. I don't need anyone to tell me because I can look on the bottom, it says KSA kosher, it says OU, it says OK, it says OUP and OUD. Now, anyone who knows anything about these hashgachot know that this is completely fabricated. There's nothing on here that I would trust to be kosher, even if they seemingly were kosher in their packages, because none of these kashrut organizations would seemingly team up and put all of this together on here. And by the way, OUP, look at the items they have in here. Simply salted chips, perfect bars. What are they talking about? Oatmeal? OUP? Come on.
You also have to ask for this. It's behind the counter in a little lemon.
And if I'm not mistaken, when we investigated this, they said they made this themselves. I mean, they're not embarrassed. They're not embarrassed to say that.
The logo on the top left.
Yeah, this is not like anything that's really being hidden. I'm actually, you know what? I'm gonna just reach out to Rabbi Chaim Arking. He does a good job. He knows all this stuff on the kashrut. I'm gonna send him that piece. We'll send him it. If you could put that in the chat, send it into the chat. I want to post that so that's public. We're also gonna put it out onto our Instagram along with the video. And let's take a look. Let's see if anyone has any specific comments of something of the nature. We can look it up and take it further. Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen v'amen.